Hello, family. My name is Darlene, and I'm a recovering addict. I just wanted to say thank you to Slayer and the committee and everybody who had a part in this camp out. It was like one of the funnest times I've had in a long time. All the events down at the beach and the slide and watching people go down that slide and riding on one of those boards for the first time ever. And that was hard. But this fellowshipping and that made me feel really good. It made me feel like, part of South Lake again because I did move down the hill and I don't get to see everybody. It was like a reunion, you know. So when I got here, when I finally wanted to get clean, um, all I wanted was the life I had before I started using back. And boy, I sold myself short. I really did. I was driving up here today and I was thinking, like, because I didn't sleep very well because someone made that coffee really well. I was like, I don't usually have too much coffee. I have like one cup in the morning, and then I'm good all day long. And yesterday I like been in the sun, the water, and like just here and there. And I'm like, I need a cup of coffee, and it was late, and I was just up all night, so my head was blank, and I was thinking, I don't even know what I'm gonna say when I get up here. And then I was driving up the lake and looking at the lake, and then just all these flashes of things like miracles and like great things that happened to me on this path that I just looked at my husband and I was like, now I just don't know how to pick through so many miracles to share, because this program has just given me so much. And I'm so grateful and so humble to be up here, and and um and I enjoy and appreciate being humble because I've been humiliated a lot in my life. And I had to get to that point of humiliation to get motivated to do anything. And I was thinking about this time, I had got arrested in Story County, and they had these old school, suits that you had to wear that were like black and white stripes. It was a tiny little jail and no doctor there or any kind of facility on site, so they'd have to take you out to the doctor if you had to go. And I had arrived with an abscess on my arm, and I had to go to the doctor, and and they had no pharmacy there either. So the police officer takes me into Scolari's grocery store in my black and white stripes and sits me on a bench, and I wait by the pharmacy for my prescription. And people are walking by staring at me. Mothers are grabbing their children and pulling them away, and they're like, mommy, is that girl in jail? And and they're just looking at me. And so that humiliation, it was something I was really comfortable with. And I just I got here broken and scared, and I had been through so much. My family is a huge part of my life. I've always had a real loving, caring family. My dad's an alcoholic, he has one belief and my mother has another belief. So my whole life, I woke up like every morning just about people arguing about religion. My parents always arguing about this is the way it should be, this is the way it should be. And then my mom, dragging me off to what she believed in. And, I never felt like I fit in there, and I never felt like I belonged. I would hide my shoes and I'd hide my dress because I had to dress a certain way and be a certain way, and so she would maybe not take me. And And so, like, when I got here and this program told me I could believe in anything I wanted, I had never heard that in my entire life. You know, I was told I had to believe a certain way. I had to be this certain way or I'd be punished, or, you know, things wouldn't go right for me. And when I came here, then I was like a kid in a candy store, you know, because I was like, I can choose what I want. You know, I'm free. And that was like one of the greatest gifts. And so I went like here with this person, and then here with this person, and here with this other person. And I would see things in them that I found attractive, like, you know, that spirit, that glow, that happiness, that, you know, just that light. And I'd go with them and see if that's what worked for me. And, you know, I finally did find my path. And this is just my path. I think it's beautiful that this program gives us the opportunity, you know, and the tools to believe in whatever you want. And so I found a path in, you know, Native American ceremonies, and it's amazing, you know. I truly believe that my higher power brought me to recovery and to the steps to open up that path to some spiritual connection. And you know, I'm just truly grateful for that. You know, so I got here my last time using. I'm sorry I'm jumping around. I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I've done this, speaking in front of this many people. But the last time I used, I didn't want to use. I was fighting it. You know, I didn't want to use, and I already had the stuff in my hand. And I was just like, you know, I didn't know any other way. And I was already, you know, in drug court. I was looking at 1 to 6, and I used, and I had this huge abscess on my arm, and I, you know, I had a job I was trying to maintain, because my goal, my great thinking and my goal was to be like my brother and my dad, because they could drink, they could party, and they could maintain a job. And that's what all I wanted. You know, I was like, if I could do that and do like them, then, you know, I could just go through life and have my cake and eat it too, you know. And that was like my huge goal, you know. And so I tried getting a job. I tried doing that, but then, you know, I went out partying, drinking, and next thing you know, it led me to the needle. And then, you know, and then I'm broken, I'm scared, alone, don't want to use, don't know how to stop, and sticking a needle in my arm. And so then I was home, and I had to call into work, and I'm sitting on the couch, and by this time my dad had a heart attack. He had to retire, and he's living at home. My mom's the only one working. She has to go 30 miles, or, you know, 30 minutes to work, 30 minutes back, cook, clean for us, take care of my kids, because I wasn't, you know, taking care of them. All the money I was making from work was, you know, to party and to go out clubbing and, you know, just get high, you know. And so she's taking care of my kids, my dad who just had a heart attack, and here I am sitting on her couch, running up her phone bill, talking to my ex, you know, in prison, and I can't move. I can't move off that couch because it's like swollen, and I don't know what to do. And she comes back home from working all day, and she's like, you know, you haven't moved all day. What's wrong with you? And I showed her my arm, and so then she had to take me back to the hospital. It's like another half an hour away. And I get in there and I'm like, okay, they're just gonna cut it, drain it, and look at me like I'm a piece of crap and send me on my way. Well, this time they didn't do that. They cut it, they drained it, and they admitted me and they hooked me up to an IV. And they said if I had waited any longer, I wouldn't have made it, you know, and because I was just waiting and waiting, and it was already traveling, and all this time I had been running like crazy wreckage through my family's life, you know, people I loved and cared about, and you know, before I started using and would do anything for. I'm stealing from them, lying from them, working them, doing anything I can to get drugs. Nothing mattered. I had no more morals. I had nothing that mattered to me except the dope and that next high. And so I'm sitting in that hospital bed and I'm thinking, you know, for the first time in my entire life, I'm thinking, I'm not only hurting myself. You know, after all those years of, you know, hurting people, it just, you know, was like that moment of clarity is like, you know, I'm not only hurting myself. You know, look at what my mom's going through. And, you know, I decided right then and there that that I was going to turn myself in. And because I was tired of doing the things I had to do to stay high, and tired of hurting people I cared about. I was just tired, you know. They say you get sick and tired, and I was sick and tired, you know. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna kill myself, because I can't go on living like this. I can't do these things that, you know, like hurting. I look at my kids' eyes, you know. And they used to cry when I leave, you know, when I get arrested. They used to cry and be like, don't go, you know, Mom, you know. And then, you know, towards the end of my addiction, end of my using, they just looked and went, oh, you know, like, oh, here she goes again. You know, and that broke my heart, because I'd been emotionally numb for so many years. And I never, ever wanted to see that in my children. I wanted them to be happy, joyous, and free, and like be able to feel everything. And because of the things that I was doing, they were becoming emotionally numb. And that, you know, wasn't enough. You know, it was that moment of clarity that I had, that I wasn't only hurting myself. So then I turned myself in. You know, I went and I'm like, I've been using, you know, to drug court, and I had been in and out of rehab. You know, they told me I had to go to rehab, and I looked in the phone book, and I found a program for 14 days, and I go, that's the one I'm going to go to, because I was just like, I just want to get them off my back, and I want to go use again, you know. And so I did that 14, and then I got caught, busted again, went in and out of rehab, you know. But I never, ever wanted it. All I wanted is them off my back, you know. And this time I wanted it. And so I turned myself in, looking at 1 to 6, and I thought, you know, I'm probably going to prison, because they already, you know, have given me all these chances to go to rehab. They've already given me so many chances. And so that's what I felt like I was looking at when I went in. I went in, and they had the whole drug court, like, committee there, you know, everybody, like a whole room full of people. And I walk in, and I like, you know, they're like, well, what's going on? I go, I've been using, you know. And they go, we know, we were just waiting to catch you. And they offered me a long-term treatment program. And I came up here to Sierra Recovery Center. And immediately, you know, started looking for a sponsor. Because I had been to meetings before, because court ordered, and I never wanted to stay clean. And I may have heard something, or a seed was planted, and so I knew that, I say the same things over and over again from the minute we walk in the meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, find a higher power, get in service, all these things that they tell you over and over again. And so one day I saw this woman walk in, and I just looked at her, and I had never heard her speak. She had never heard me, speak. And I just said, "There's my sponsor." And I was like, I didn't even know how much time she had or anything, And I was just, but I truly believe my higher power picked her, and she was tough, She had me journaling, writing. She started immediately on the steps, And the first, I went up and asked her, I'm like, "Will you be my sponsor?" She's like, "You never even talked to me, how, But she said yes, And she's the one that taught me that, my only job here is to be here for that person that comes through the door. I have no control or power whether they use it or not use, but, just to be there. And every single thing I've learned here in this program, I can use in any relationship I have in my life. Whether it be with my kids, my parents, my sisters, brothers, spiritual family, whoever, and I've learned so much. She started working the steps with me, and she picked me up one day, and I had it in my mind that I surrendered. I had it in my mind that I didn't want to use anymore. And she picked me up one day and took me to the sweat lodge. And I'm not, this is just my story, and I appreciate everyone's belief. But I'm going to share a little piece of this because it's a piece of who I am. And my story. And I went to the sweat lodge with my sponsor, and I had lost and took, all ties away from my drug dealer. I had no, back then we had, it was 14 years ago, the way I get a hold of him was a pager. I'd have to find and search a phone that could call back, and I knew every single pay phone in Reno that could call back. I'd call him on the pager, wait for the phone call. Okay, I want this and this, And so I dropped all those ties. I didn't want any, triggers, anything like that, because it was just in my head, that I wanted to stop. And so I'm sitting there, and it's downtown Reno, Wells. It's in the middle of the city. She takes me to this lodge, and we're sitting there, and the guy starts telling these teachings, about how you go in there in this sweat lodge, and you go in there, and it's like going into the mother's belly. And you go in there, and you come out new again, and you leave everything. That you leave all that stuff there, and then they take it from you, and you come out new again. It's like being reborn. And as he's telling this, my dealer, out of everywhere in Reno, pulls up right across the street and gets out of the car with his flashlight full of dope and runs up into this apartment, and I know what's going on because I know who he is and I know what's going on. And right then it was like a huge pivotal, choice I had to make. And right then, because I can go get that connect again. I lost that, and I made a decision, to change my life and to go on in there and come back new. And that's when it sunk to my heart. That surrender went from my head to my heart. And I was done. I no longer wanted to use again. You know, I no longer wanted to do that. And I was going to do anything it took to stay here. You know, and I'd sit in the rooms and I'd listen. I'd listen to what you guys had to say, and I was letting you change me, and I was letting you touch my heart and tell your stories and share with me and encourage me and love me when I didn't even know how to love myself yet. And, you know, I was, you know, so broken. I didn't know how to live, you know. And so from that point on, this light was inside of me that I loved to see and enjoy in other people, you know. And then I could go on to 2 and 3, you know. I could start working the steps, you know, because it was in my heart. And the way I always look at 2 and 3 for me is that, you know, those toys that kids play with, you know, they put the circle in the circle and the square in the square, and they fit it in there, and then they learn their shapes and stuff. And I look at it like my whole life I've been jamming a square inside of a circle, and I've been like pushing it in there. And that's like, you know, everything outside of myself I've been trying to shove into this circle to make me feel whole, because I have this God-shaped hole inside of me, and I'm shoving drugs in there, men in there, you know, food in there, you know, like any addiction I can get my hands on, that, you know, anything that makes me feel different and not like me. And but no matter how many times I fit that square in that circle, there's still open space. It's never full. I'm never complete. And so when I got here, I got to take out that square full of crap and fill that circle with God, you know, and feel whole and feel like a whole person. And it was a lot of work, you know. It's a lot of work working the steps, you know, but it's a simple program. I'm the one that complicates it, you know. I'm the one that makes it hard, you know, because I let my mind start going, you know. But it's just, you know, just the next step, just doing the next step, you know. And when I got here, I was so afraid to go back where I came that I was like on those steps. You know, they'd tell me like, you know, only 3 of you in this whole room are going to make it, you know. And I'd be like, that's going to be me. And so I knew where my sponsor got coffee in the morning. And I'd show up there and be like, da-da-da-da-da, this is what's going on with me. Can you believe it? And da-da-da, you know, like all this stuff, you know. And she's like, and she knew. She expected it. She just pour her coffee in the morning on her way to work. She always go the same place, buy her coffee. And, you know, because that's how I was, you know, out there using. If you had the bag, I was like, I didn't care about your personal space. You know, I didn't care about, you know, I wasn't like, oh, am I imposing, you know, or am I going to bug you or bother you, you know? I was just like, here I am, and I need this. And so that's how I was when I got here in this program. I'm like, here I am, and I need this. You know, I need to learn how to live, because all my life I've been spending trying to survive or trying to kill myself. And I just wanted to live, you know. I remember sitting on the corner, like I was beat up, I was broke, and tore back, and just, you know, sick. And I was sitting on the corner one day, and I saw these girls driving in this car. And I looked at them, and I'm like, what I would do to be in that car. Because they were all laughing, and you could tell they were going shopping or doing something fun or whatever, you know. And I'm like, what I would do just to be them for one moment, you know. You know, anything. And I didn't never, ever imagine or know how to attain that. And then this is what this program's taught me, you know. And so I diligently and vigilantly worked through the steps, you know, and It was the greatest, most caring, loving gift I've ever done for myself. And that's really says a lot about on the fourth step. You know, it's the most loving, caring thing you can do for yourself. And, you know, a lot of people look at that as like, you know, a really hard step, but because it is hard to look at yourself. But, you know, for me, it was the 6th and 7th, because then I really got to know who I was, you know, and my character defects and you know, who I was as a person. And, you know, I always wanted to be something different. Like, I wanted to, like, get in your head and see, you know, what you wanted, and then I would become that person that I thought you wanted, you know. And, you know, I grew up, you know, my dad was a boxer and a professional boxer, Golden Gloves, and he traveled all over, and he's a Marine, and he wanted a boy. So I tried being that boy. You know, I tried, you know, being tough, and you know, and he'd always tell me, you know, only if you were a boy I'd have a champion, because he'd put those gloves on me and have me fight my brother's friends, and like, just, you know, and that's how I got attention, you know, and that's how I've got, you know, attention, and I liked it, you know, for a while. And I remember being, you know, about 12 years old at a bus stop, and some girl wanted to fight me. And I remember thinking, I'm tired of hurting people. You know, I'm tired of hurting people because I'm hurting. I was hurting inside, you know, and so I just stood there and let her beat me up. And I remember thinking, you know, I'm no longer going to fight, you know, and I think, you know, for me, that surrender right there, like, kind of paved the way. And the way I look at it is, like, you know, I look back hindsight a lot of times, and I see where my higher powers, like, put little moments in my life that paved the way for later, like, for later surrender or later things in my life, you know. And so you know, all this time, you know, there were so many God shots in my life. You know, I'd end up, you know, I had my kids taken away, and in recovery, I ended up getting them back. But another God shot was that I didn't get them back right away, because I had this pattern of, you know, going out, getting my kids back, relapsing because it was too much, going out, getting my kids back, you know, getting arrested, and then getting my kids back. You know, it was just like all this, like, cycle of right away getting my kids back. Until this last time, you know, I'm sitting in the recovery center, and I'm thinking, you know, okay, it's about time I get my kids back, you know. And my counselor's like, I don't think so. He goes, what do you have to offer? And I was like, I just looked at him, and I was like, what? They're my kids. And he's like, yeah, but once again, what do you have to offer? And I didn't have an answer. And I just started bawling. And it was like another surrender, like a deeper surrender, because it's like, not am I surrendering my disease or my addiction, I'm surrendering my kids. You know, no, legally I could have them. But it had to be, like, you know, my choice to say, you know what? I'm going to think of them first for once in their life. You know, I'm going to put them first. Because every single time I put myself first. Self-centered disease. You know, I wanted my needs. I wanted to give them love and fix their problems and my problems. And so it was funny because this, my counselor, he was this big guy, and he had, like, missing 2 fingers, so he had this claw. And, like, I'm really pissed off, and I'm, like, flipping out, crying, and, like, I want my kids back, and, like, you know, and then he's like, I'm, like, running around the car, and he's chasing me. And I'm, like, I was thinking, like, we must have looked really crazy, you know? Like, he's just, like, waddling around the car, chasing me with his claw. And I'm, like, he's, like, surrender, you know? And I'm, like, all right, I'm going to surrender. You know, I'm not going to get my kids back, you know? I'm going to, work on myself for once, and luckily I did, because when the time came and, I invested all this time and spent all this time working on myself, the time came to get my kids back, I was ready. And they had all their own little problems that, they had abandonment. They had broken hearts. They didn't trust me. They were hurt. They walked in, they had the same feelings I had when I walked in the rooms. And I was like, what? I just and I painted this pretty picture in my head of picket fence and just I'm going to be there for them and I'm going to care for them and I'm going to love them and everything's going to be awesome, And it was hard. Kicking, screaming, yelling. My, daughter started cutting herself, and my son was on medication, and I'm dragging my daughter to counseling, and she's looking up at me with her little eyes and her little face, and she's like, "Why am I going to counseling? You're the one with the problem." And I'm like, "Oh, you're going. You're going." And I drag her in there, fighting, kicking, screaming, yelling, and sitting her in front of that counselor and just over and over again, because what this program taught me was to be, diligent, just to not to give up, not to quit, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how hard you want to run, there's and that was a big red flag for me a lot of times. If I wanted to run and if I was running from something, I was getting too busy and not going to as much meetings, I'd have to pull back to the basics of the program, what I was taught here every single time I come to a meeting. I hear the same thing, get a sponsor, work the steps, be of service, and find a relationship with a higher power, and so many things. But so all that time and investment in my children really paid off. Really being diligent with them, seeking the help that they need, letting them, yell at me and say, "I hate you, wish you'd go back to jail," and just taking it and holding them and saying, "I love you," night after night, and just being there for them. You guys showed me when I got here. You guys showed me how to be there for somebody. I never knew how to do that. I only knew how to get what I wanted, not to be there out of myself for someone else. And so that's what I did for my children, and I owe that to you guys. And today, they're amazing people, my son's here today. My daughter came here yesterday. She hugs everybody. She loves everybody. My son, for a long time, he used the phone list to contact people if he needed a ride or he needed help or he needed something. I'd see people in town in our small little fellowship, and they'd be like, "Oh, I saw Marcus. I saw him here, and he was doing this. I gave him a ride over here. He was doing this or that, And I'm like, "Marcus, how do you know all these people? How do you have their number?" He's like, "Oh, I got this phone list here." And he pulls it out and he's calling people on the phone list, So it's this program teaches us so many tools that, anybody can use. It was and still even today he keeps in contact with a lot of people. He's not in the program, my daughter's not, but it's taught them how to live, And the relationships that I've restored with my family members is unmeasurable. Today is my parents' 53rd anniversary. They've been married 53 years, and my mom called me this morning. I got to talk to her, and it's just she calls me, and she's just and family members call me if they need something, and I'm just yeah, I just want to be of service, I want to help, I was there through, my dad getting sick and being in the hospital, and I was his advocate, You know, I was there at every doctor appointment. I was, you know, and this program's what, you know, taught me how to be there for other people. And for me, you know, I think, you know, the most spiritual thing I can do is just be of service, you know, and just get outside of myself, because when I'm not, I'm so immersed in what's going on in my head. It's all about me. And then the disease starts working, you know, and, you know, through, you know, my spiritual connection, you know, I always look at it like, you know, like when I first got here, it was like, you know, that umbilical cord to my higher power, you know, and I'm being fed all these miracles, and I'm being fed, like, you know, this strong connection and this great connection. And there's a miracle at every door, you know, because I've never done the things I did. I never learned how to grocery shop. I never learned how to budget and pay bills on time. I never learned all these things until I got here. So it was like, wow, 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 you know. And then eventually, you know, I get some time, I work the steps, and I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet, and that cord's cut. And like my higher power says, hey, now you need to stand on your own 2 feet and work for this. You need to work for this relationship. You need to put in the work. You need to, you know, have some kind of structure and commitment to prayer and commitment to a relationship with me. You need to call me more than I call you. You know, you got to work for this relationship. And in doing that, it seems that, you know, like I have like this stronger relationship. Sometimes I'll just be driving down the car, you know, in my car, and I'll be talking to God. You know, I was like, you know, this is what's been going on with me, you know, like not like he already knows, but it's just like, you know, like, you know, and just like I would be talking to any other person sitting in here, you know, in my car. And so, and that's how the relationships evolved, because when I first got here, I couldn't pray out loud. I thought I was being some weird freak, you know, like they're going to think I'm talking to some imaginary friend, you know, and I just feel awkward and like unnatural, and just like, and what am I asking for, and what do I pray for, and all these questions, you know. And so, you know, this being a spiritual program, every single time I sit down with the sponsee and we work a step, I'm like, pray out loud. I don't care who you pray to, what your connection is, or whatever, just pray out loud. And they hate it. They hate it. They hate it every single time. But you know what? That's what my sponsor had me do, and it taught me to get out of myself and get out of the weirdness of it and that feeling of it, and we just sit down and get real. And there is like nothing like it. You know, I think I think that's what drives me the most now. It's not that urgency like I'm going to use, or that, you know, obsession, that, you know, the thoughts all the time of using. It's that push from my sponsees that, you know what, I got to be there to provide the best I can for them. You know, and if I'm not staying on my game, you know, and I'm not working on myself and doing the things I need to do to stay here, then I have nothing to give. It doesn't matter how many times I've worked the steps in the past, because today, I only have today, you know, and what am I doing today? You know, it's a fluid program. It's fluid. It's always moving. You know, I was taught that here, that it's always moving. So if I'm just saying, oh, I'm going to stand still today, I'm moving backwards. I can't just stand still in this program. I'm either moving forward or backwards. And I get to make a choice on what I'm doing today. So I pick up the literature. I call someone in the fellowship. I go to a meeting, you know. And sometimes in my recovery, I haven't done so good, but other, you know, I think the main thing that's really kept me here is that my sponsor would always have me go back to the basics. And she'd always say it, you know, I worked step 1, I worked step 2, I worked step 1 again. I worked step 1, 2, 3, I worked step 1 again, you know, because she kept putting me back on 1, because she's like, you're powerless. You're powerless, Darlene, because I had this thing of always trying to take that control back, you know? And so I have to remember always that this is a fluid program, that if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backwards. My recovery yesterday, no matter how great it was, is not going to keep me clean today. And I treat this program like a gift that my higher power gave me. He came here and said, here you go, Darlene. Here you go. I'm going to give you this opportunity, what you've been praying for, to have a life and learn to live. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to spit on it? Are you going to take it, cherish it, and hold it sacred? And so that's what I try to do. Some days I'm good, some days I'm not. I fall but I don't pick up. And for that, I'm truly grateful, and I'm truly grateful for everyone that came here today and is part of my recovery. Thank you.